Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. طيب, so we have about an hour and 20 minutes before Salat al-Asr, and I'm hoping that will allow us to complete the fourth item on the outline, care for your heart in Ramadan. If it doesn't allow us to complete it, we'll at least complete the first half of it, and then complete the second half after dinner, and then maybe take questions and answers. Will we reach 5 and 6? That's unlikely, but we will try to get as much of it as we can. I doubt very seriously we'll get to 6. We may be able to get into 5, but 6 I don't think
we need some
is likely. You need 6, huh?
Yes.
MashaAllah. Okay. Thank you, Ali. I'll try to make it happen, and because you said we need it. Jazakallah khairah. That's true. I could do that, couldn't I? Thank you for pointing that out, Musa. طيب, so as you can see, the next item on our agenda is care for your heart in Ramadan. Ya ikhwan, the heart is a critical organ in the body. And it's not a critical organ from the physical perspective alone. If your heart stops, obviously, life stops, doesn't it? So that's obvious. But we have to understand that this organ does not just provide the body with physical life. It's not a key source in the physical life of the body, but it's also a key source in the spiritual life of the human being. And is the heart, okay, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about this, or actually the Prophet ﷺ talked about the critical nature of the heart in the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir, Khutab al-Bukhari Muslim, in which he said, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam, ala fil jasadi mudgha, idha salahat salaha al-jasadu kullu, wa idha fasadat fasada al-jasadu kullu, ala wa hiya al-qalb. He said, is there not? Certainly there is a lump of flesh in the body. If it is sound and upright, the whole body will be sound and upright. And if it is corrupt, if it is ill, if it is foul, the whole body will be corrupt, ill, and foul. Certainly that lump of flesh is the heart. Abu Hurairah, commenting on this statement of the Prophet, he said, القلب هو الملك والأعضاء جنوده فإذا طاب الملك طابت جنوده وإذا خبث الملك خبثت جنوده. He said, the heart is the king and the body is its obedient soldiers. If the king is upright, then the body, the soldiers, will be upright. They'll do good things. And if the king is corrupt, the body, the soldiers, will be corrupt. And so this goes to show you that there is a talazum, there is an inseparable connection between the heart, its condition, and the condition of what? The limbs. And so whatever we do outwardly is a direct reflection on what? On who we are internally and the condition of our heart. No one can say, I don't pray, I don't fast, I have a girlfriend, I drink wine, I lie, I cheat, I steal. But what? My qalb, my heart, is abyad tahir. It's white and pure. Nobody can say that. Because as the heart goes, so go the limbs. And you're only as good on the outside as you are on the inside. And so it's critical for the Muslim to first understand this and then do what? And then act accordingly. Take the required action. Give attention to what the condition of his heart, and also be in tune with what? With his reality and what that reality indicates about his heart. He has to be in tune with that. He can't be the person who says, I have a pure heart. White, pure, even though I do X, Y, and Z. He can't live in this fantasy world because he'll never do what? Rectify the real problem in what? In terms of his deeds. If he has this disconnect that I can be a perfect believer with the purest of hearts and still do what? Still do X, Y, and Z. And since Ramadan is that time when the environment is made very conducive and the path is paved for us to what? To reflect and to engage in self-improvement, it's a good time to do what? To take a critical exam, a critical look at our hearts, and based upon the results of that exam, to do what? To do something about it. So what we want to do here is we want to talk about the exam, the look that we should be giving to ourselves, and then how to care for the heart based upon the results of the exam. So that you can go into Ramadan with that mindset, that I'm going to examine myself, and then I'm going to do what? Act accordingly. So this heart let me say a couple things before I go to the next. The first thing I want to say is, what is the heart? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks a lot about the heart, and He talks about it as if it is the thing that we really use to see, right? So He says, for example, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فتكون لهم قلوب يعقلون بها أو آذان يسمعون بها فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. He says, so have they not traveled through the earth? And this is Surah Al-Hajj, verse 46. Surah 22, verse 46. He says, have they not traveled through the earth, having hearts by which to reason and understand? So Allah points to the heart being what? The source of what? Intellect, reasoning, comprehending. And ears with which to hear. For indeed, it is not the eyes that are blinded, but blinded are the hearts that are in the breasts. So now it's not your eyes that don't see, but your heart what? That doesn't see. It's as if what? You see with what? Your heart on a what? On a spiritual level. You guys see that? So now, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks like this in the Quran, there's more than one ayah that speaks like this. Do we understand He's talking about what? The heart in your chest? The one that beats in your chest? Mumkin. Perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the same what? The same heart that's in your chest, which has a quality, an ability, and a job that it does, a function that it performs, that scientists and doctors and physicians do not what? Do not comprehend and fathom and realize that it exists. But Allah, being our creator, knows that what? This heart does actually what? Perform these functions. And maybe they'll discover it what? Years down the road and confirm what Allah is already telling us in the Quran. It may happen. Or it may be that Allah is talking about what? Something else in the body and using the same word that He uses for what? This actual qalb that does what? Pumps blood. Lakin al-muhim, whether it's this or that, we know that what? This qalb is what? Very important. Because we comprehend via this qalb. So we won't be able to comprehend His knowledge, understand His guidance, and apply it unless what? The qalb is what? Is right. We also see on a spiritual level with this qalb, and so our vision may become blurred and we won't be able to recognize truth from falsehood if what? If this heart isn't right. And that's why Ibn Taymiyyah, it doesn't matter how what? How right, how sharp this intellect is, this mind is. That's not going to make you able to what? See the truth and follow it if what? If your heart is not right. And that's why Ibn Taymiyyah said about Mu'tazilah, this deviant group, which developed all of these new concepts about how to understand what they call usul ad-din, the fundamentals of religion, which means what? Theology. They developed all of these new ideas about that, which were different, and they incorporated a lot of what? Of the influence of philosophy and philosophers. He said that these people were some of the most what? Intelligent people from the point of what? Of intellect, brain power. But in spite of all of this intelligence, they what? They couldn't recognize the truth and follow it. Because why? Their hearts were impure. So he said, Hum unasun. Utu dhaka'an. They are people who were given what? Intellect. They're smart people, sharp people. Walam yu'tu zaka'an. But they weren't given what? The purity of what? The purity of heart necessary to what? To see the truth and follow it. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out, is that we don't want to be from those people. We don't want to be from those, or there's the second thing I wanted to point out was that we don't want to be from those people. We need to realize that what? This heart is what? It's critical. That we're not going to understand the deen and practice it correctly and believe in Allah correctly and be upright unless what? Unless our hearts are what? Are upright. As emphasized by what? The statement of the Prophet that we mentioned previously. So now you have this heart which can be what? Ill. And if it's ill, it can cause you to what? Your vision to be blurred, your understanding of truth or comprehension of it to be what? Impaired. And so you do what? You end up not following the truth, not acting the way you should conduct yourself, doing things which will hurt you instead of help you in your goal to reach paradise. And so what that means is that the heart could be one of three hearts. Could be a heart that is pure. A heart which is what? Salim. And Allah tells us this in the Quran. He says, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. He says, the day when wealth and sons will not benefit anyone except the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart, pure heart. Right? That's the first one. This heart is what? In good health. The second type of heart is a heart which is what? Sick. Okay? So that means that the hearts can do what? They can be ill. They're not dead. They have some life. There's hope. But they're what? They're in danger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ marad. In their hearts there's what? A disease. There's illness. There's sickness in their hearts. They're what? They're in danger. They're in what? They're in a critical state. They need to be what? Concerned about themselves, because they could go to what? The last realm. Another thing that can happen to the heart, it can be what? It can become hard. When the heart is hard like a stone, it can't take benefit from what? Allah's guidance. Can't take benefit. Imagine a stone. Take some water. Pour water on it. What happens? Pushes it away. Imagine Allah's guidance is what? Is that water. And the heart, because of its hardness, does what? Pushes it away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ. And after that, their hearts became what? Hard. They became the people who what? Wouldn't accept, wouldn't embrace Allah's guidance. But every time the guidance came to them, it did what? It bounced off. okay, and was repelled. Wasn't absorbed by the heart. That's another what? Danger zone. Even more dangerous than what the people who what? They have sickness in their hearts. And then finally, the final danger zone is when the heart does what? It dies. Which means what? That's it. No hope. All the hope is what? Has been extinguished. And the Salaf, the early Muslims, they talked about this reality. One of them being Ibn Mubarak, he said, رَأَيْتُ الذُّنُوبِ تُمِيتُ الْقُلُوبِ. I have seen sins killing hearts. Hearts can do what? They can die. So you have these different types of hearts. And the one we want to focus on is the one that most of us have, ya ikhwan. Although it's degrees, most of us have that heart. Which one do you think it is? The sick one. And it's degrees. Some of us are sicker than others, but we all have what? Sick hearts. Some of us are sicker than others, and we need to what? We need to be conscious of that fact. We have to admit it, just like the person who stands up at the AA meeting. Hi, my name is Bob Jones, and I'm an alcoholic. Right? You have to begin, the first step in curing yourself is admitting that what? I'm sick. And this is a problem with a lot of people. You say, man, you're sick. Your heart is sick. There's some disease in your heart. And they resist. They refuse to accept. And that's why they can't get better. They can't heal. They can't get better. It's a big problem with a lot of people who are quote unquote religious. They're too self-righteous. They're too self-righteous. There's nothing wrong with them. There's something wrong with everyone else, but there's nothing wrong with them. You can't admit you're sick, you're never going to get better. I'm sick, and I need to get better. You have to admit that. Then you have to do what? You have to take a conscious and sincere look at yourself. This is who I am, and this is what I do. That goes against the deen. Okay? Some people have vices. You have to what? Admit that these are vices. Some people, they have issues with their character. Some people, they have problems with keeping their promises. They have problems with the rights of others. Some people just, it's part of who they are that they usurp the rights of others and they don't feel anything. You guys know it's like sociopaths. There's a lot of people who are sociopaths and they don't even realize it. They don't even realize that they just run roughshod over the rights of others and they don't feel anything. Like a person, for example, who he's married. He has a wife and his obligation is to what? To provide for her. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-rijal qawwamun ala-nisa. Men are the what? The maintainers of women. His obligation is to what? Maintain her. But he, for whatever reason, is one of those people who, I never give anybody their right. And I always have an excuse why they're not entitled to whatever they have claim to. And I'm not going to give it to them. And I have a bunch of excuses for that. So he doesn't provide. Not for her, not for his children. And he provides, but it's very what? It's lacking in terms of what their needs are. So he forces the woman to maybe what? Work. So maybe he's giving her, to run the household, he's giving her, let's say, $1,000, let's say. And that's half of what they need to run the household in terms of what? Paying the utilities, getting food and drink, clothing the children, those types of things. So he's lacking. She feels that, I can't get through his thick skull that I need more than that, so forget about it. Rather than arguing with him and nagging him, I'll just go out and work. So she goes out and works, and then he says, okay, well, you work and you're making this much a month. So that $1,000, I'm going to do what? Cut it to $500. Whoa, it wasn't enough initially. And now because I'm working, you do what? You want to cut it. You understand? And he has excuses. Oh, well, you know, I took the children out for dinner the other day. You didn't even have to make dinner. You have to buy groceries for that. Or he's full of excuses. The point I'm trying to make is, I don't want to go too far off the topic, but the point is that you have people who have a sickness like this and they don't realize that they have a sickness. They have to admit, this is not how a husband conducts his business. They have to admit that. Doesn't conduct his business in that way. So whatever the issue is, issue of character, issue of vices, whatever, the person has to what? Make an inventory of what? These are my issues. I don't worship Allah the way I should. Okay? I pray, but I don't pray on time. Or when I pray, I'm not really in tune with my prayer. I pray, but I don't pray the sunan. Whatever it is. So he makes a list, an itemized list of what his issues are. And then he begins, so he recognizes his illness, recognizes the symptoms of his illness, and then now he's got to do what? He's got to begin treatment. Now, treatment of the hearts and its sicknesses is going to be just like the treatment of what? Illnesses of the badan. You go to a doctor and they do what? They give you a fahs, they give you an examination. And after the exam, they come up with a diagnosis. This is what you're suffering from. And then they have a two-part plan or a two-phase plan for what? To bring about recovery. The first thing is the doctor will say, your illness and the symptoms of it are caused by certain things that you what? That you're doing. And so we need to do what? Get those things out of your life that you're doing that are what? Causing it. So the first thing they'll do is they'll rid you of what? The disease causes or the sickness causes. For example, let's say a person had gout. You guys know what the gout is, right? So the person has the gout, and when he goes to the doctor and he's finally diagnosed with the gout, the doctor's going to say there's certain things in your diet that are causing the gout. So you have to remove these things from your diet. So he's going to tell you, you got to remove these proteins. Got to take protein out. Got to take salt out. You got to do this. If you had high blood pressure, similarly, got to take this out, fat out, this out. He would tell him, these things you're doing are what? They're poisoning you, they're killing you, they're making you sick. So you have to what? Remove them. Then after that, the doctor's going to say, phase 2 is I'm going to give you what? An exercise regimen. I'm going to give you a diet. I'm going to give you a prescription to do what? To treat the illness and the symptoms. 2 parts. You guys see that? Same thing with the heart. The heart has what? Disease causers. Things that we do that make it sick. Like we're consuming what? Poison that's killing us slowly. Killing the heart slowly. Same time, the heart has what? Has certain things that when you take it, it's like what? Medicine. It cures the heart. It treats the heart and makes it what? Makes it better. So our approach to the heart has to be what? The 2-phase approach. Get rid of what's causing the sickness and do what? Incorporate what? The treatment and the cure. Start taking the cure. And the result will be what? That first category of heart, the qalb as-salim, that pure heart that we all what? Target and covet. You guys got it? So with that said, I want to begin first and foremost with the first phase. And then we're going to talk about how we treat those sicknesses or those disease causers. So I'm going to give you a bullet list first of some of the disease causers or diseases, sicknesses of the heart. And then we're going to come back, talk about each one in some detail. Don't want to go too much detail, want to be as brief as possible. Not too brief, but, not over-exhaust the point because we do have some time concerns or time constraints. And then we're going to come back and talk about treatment. Make sense? So let me give you the bullets of the diseases or disease causes that we're going to talk about. The first one, al-dhunub, sins. The second one, al-jahl, ignorance. Third one, ash-shubuhat, doubts, misconceptions, erroneous interpretations of the religion. Number 4, kathratul kalam, unnecessary talking or what? Excessive talking, unnecessary talking or excessive talking. Number 5. Slow down. You're right. I'll wait for you guys. I'll wait for your signal. You give me the green light. You guys with me? Waiting for the green light. Waiting for the green light. Somebody's honking behind me, aren't they? All right. Another ila al-haram. Looking at things that were prohibited from looking at, or if you want, unrestrained glances. Unrestrained glances. You can put it like that too. You can say looking at the haram, or you could say unrestrained glances. Either one you like. Shall we go on? كثرة الأكل والشبع. Excessive eating or eating to your fill. Excessive eating or eating to your fill. They don't like that. Somebody grumbled on that one. Rufaqa as-su. Rufaqa as-su. Bad company. Keeping bad company. Keeping bad company. Su. Su. Hamza. Akhiruhu Hamza. Rufaqa as-su. Rufaqa. Rufaqa. With a qaf. رفقاء السوء. طيب الكبر. Pride or arrogance, if you will. Pride or arrogance. Next one. ذو الوجهين. ذو الوجهين. ذو الوجهين means two-facedness, or duplicity or hypocrisy, if you will. Any one of those. Duplicity, hypocrisy, two-facedness. ذل بالذات الوجهين. Wedge, face, wajhain, two faces, right? Last but not least, al-hasad. Al-hasad, envy or jealousy. Envy or jealousy. Okay? Yarhamukallah. طيب. Okay, so let's.
These last ones are actual disease of the heart or disease causes?
Disease causers, diseases of the heart. That's why I said both terms are applicable. They're diseases themselves and also causes of diseases, cause of the heart's illness, basically.
The last one again?
Al-hasad, envy or jealousy. Okay, you with me? Shall we go? All right, so the first one we mentioned was ad-dhunub, sins, right? So we have the statement of Abdullah ibn Mubarak, which he composed lines of poetry to this effect, and he said, رأيت الذنوب تميت القلوب وقد يورث الذل إدمانها وترك الذنوب حياة القلوب وخير لنفسك عصيانها. He said, I have seen sins killing hearts, and belittling them may cause one's heart to become addicted to them. Turning away from wrong actions gives life to the hearts, and opposing yourself is best for it. Okay? Okay, I will. There's a little commotion outside though, and I understand that they wanted to put the children outside so that they would, but they're just getting a little rambunctious when you kind of settle them down, I think. All right, so he said, I have seen sins killing hearts. Deja vu, huh? And belittling them may cause one's heart to become addicted to them. And belittling them may cause one's heart to become addicted to them.
I had a question.
تفضل.
Some diseases of the heart, can they cause other diseases to happen?
Yeah, for sure. There can be a domino effect. Like jahl, ignorance, can cause a person to become victim or fall victim to a shubuhat, which we're going to talk about, which doubts and misconceptions. So there can be a correlation, or there can be a domino effect. Both of them can happen. Okay. That was a good question. Hey, Amr, you need to slip this guy a 10, man, a 10 spot. All right, turning away from wrong actions gives life to the heart. Turning away from wrong actions gives life to the hearts. And opposing yourself is best for it. And opposing yourself is best for it. So now, the statement of Ibn Mubarak,
Last part, please.
and opposing yourself is best for it. So now, what Ibn Mubarak said, of course, we can support it with what? Many texts from the Quran, from the Sunnah, etc. And he clarifies to us a reality. That sins have the propensity not just to make the heart ill, but to do what? To kill it altogether. Okay? And this is something we have to be concerned about. One reason is because sins are part of what? Our nature. Right? It's from our nature. It's an intrinsic part of our fabric, our DNA, that we do what? We sin. The Prophet said in the hadith, Kullu ibn Adam khata. All of the sons of Adam commit sins. And he didn't just say they commit sins, but he says they do it what? Habitually. They have a tendency what? To keep doing it. But at the same time, the good thing about this deen is that we're not given a problem except that we're given what? Its solution. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the tatimma, the completion of this hadith, he said, وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ تَوَّابُونَ. And the best of those who make mistakes are those who what? Who repent and make amends. So there is a solution to it, but that doesn't make it any less what? Dangerous. And the Prophet underscored and emphasized the danger of sins. So he said the hadith of Abu Hurairah, collected by Ahmed and Tirmidhi. He said, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ إِذَا أَخْطَأَ خَطِيئَةً نُكِتَتْ فِي قَلْبِهِ نُكْتَةٌ سَوْدَاء فَإِذَا هُوَ نَزَعَ وَاسْتَغْفَرَ وَتَابَ سُقِلَ قَلْبُهُ. He said, indeed the servant, if he commits a sin, a black spot will appear on his heart. And if he doesn't repent and he doesn't, make amends, that spot will remain. If he commits another sin, another spot, until what? These dark spots will do what? Will cover his heart and make it have a coating that prevents it from what? Absorbing truth, accepting guidance. And that is the ran. That is that rust, which Allah talked about in the Quran when He said, كلا كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون. Nay, there is a what? A rust or a covering over their heart because of what they used to do. From what? From sins. You guys see that? So it's a serious matter. It's dangerous to the heart, and so therefore we have to be mindful of the effect of sins. It's just like a person who what? It's a person who has like a vice like smoking. He needs to be aware what smoking is doing to him. And lots of people continue to smoke because they don't really realize the damage that they're causing themselves. That's why they have these campaigns now where they're showing you what smoking can really do. So for example, I don't know if you guys have seen those commercials where, for example, they'll have a guy or a woman and they'll basically tell people their experience, how they started smoking, and what their impression of it was and what it did to them. So they have one where a guy had said, I didn't think that smoking could cause me to have a heart attack at 30-something years old. And I didn't think smoking would cause me not to be able to play with my children. And he opens his like shirt and he has like this huge scar. You have another one where there's a woman who, I think she has like a hole in her throat, right? And she says basically smoking did this to me. There's another guy who was blind in one eye. He doesn't have a leg. He has like a prosthetic. And he has some other issues. And so they show him and putting on what? Putting on the leg and doing some other things. And he's saying that, well, if you're smoking, then you need to put smoking on one side. And he starts listing your family, your health, your legs, your eyesight, your this and that on the other side. And ask yourself which one is more valuable. And then after that, it shows another caption with a black screen and says that he died shortly after making this commercial, from complications from all of his illnesses, and his age was like, something where you expect a person to what? To live much longer. And with him, you have these campaigns because a lot of people who smoke don't really know what? The danger of what smoking. The same thing is true. The person has to realize the effect of sins. He has to realize that. He has to know this, and he has to come to the reality of this before he can do what? Before he can start to what? Gradually remove these sins. And we have to keep reminding ourselves. I don't want to get too much into the cure because we'll talk about that later, but that's one thing that he definitely has to be what? Mindful of the effect. Because a lot of people, they sin because they don't really realize what can happen.
It's interesting when you got this, the AA meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and if you look at it in a nutshell, it's what tawbah is.
Mm-hmm.
You have to accept, admit,
Mm-hmm.
accept, then you comprehend it, and then you when you do the tawbah, you start sort of taking off the
Getting rid of it, yeah.
and then you can reconcile that with the hadith of the nukta.
Yeah.
When you do a sin, you get a nukta, and when you do tawbah, it
removes it. Jameel. طيب. Let's go to the next one, ya ikhwan, which is al-jahl, ignorance. And ignorance is a critical disease because as the young brother he mentioned, it's one of those which has a domino effect, leads to what other diseases. When a person is ignorant of the deen, there's a lot of other diseases and other harms that it causes what? To the person, to the individual. So it's critical for us to avoid this disease or try to treat this disease, the disease of what? Ignorance. And the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted every Muslim to know that he or she is obligated to do what? To work in earnest to remove this disease of ignorance from themselves. And he said in the hadith of Anas, collected by Ibn Majah, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيدَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ Muslim. He said seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. Every Muslim has to what? Seek knowledge and learn that amount of the deen which will make them a believer. Right? Make them a true Muslim. You can't just say, oh, I'm Muslim by birth. I'm Muslim by culture. I'm Muslim by virtue. It's inherent. I inherited it from my parents. No, Muslim is something that you have to what? It's an attributive title. Muslim is something you have to what? You have to have the attributes in order to what? To qualify. You guys see that? In order to have those attributes, you'd have to what? Know what they are and do what? Exemplify them. Make sense? So you have to have this knowledge. And if you don't have this knowledge, as we said, it can lead to what? Not just the disease of ignorance and the harm that comes from it itself, but what? It can lead to other what? Other harms and other diseases. Like what? The one who's ignorant, يَضُرُّ نَفْسَهُ. He's going to hurt himself. تِلْقَائِ. Automatically, he's going to hurt himself by his ignorance. Right? And the proof for this is the hadith of the man who killed 99 people. Famous hadith. Man kills 99 people, feels remorse, wants to repent, he asks to be guided to the most knowledgeable person on the earth. And because the people don't recognize true scholarship and they get caught up in personalities and appearances, they guide him to what? A monk. And this is something, ya ikhwan, it's not something specific to what the time that the Prophet describes, something which is what is a problem all the time. People don't know who the scholars are, don't know who the people who are people of scholarship. They don't smell the scholarship when it's right there in front of them to be smelled. They don't see it when it's right there in front of them to be seen, but they get caught up what? In personalities, asma, baraka, right? In this name, in what? In lights, right? Or they get caught up in what? These attributes that people attach to people's name that give the impression that they're what? Bigger than they really are. The noble, the student of, the sheikh, the imam. They put these titles and people get caught up in that. Or they see something that to them looks like, yeah, that's what a knowledgeable person should look like in my mind, and they automatically think that they're knowledgeable. Al-Muhim, so they got him to a monk. And monks, what is a monk? A monk is الرجل العابد المتنسك الذي لا علم عنده. He's a person who is a devoted worshipper. He's dedicated his life to Allah's service, but he's not what? Knowledgeable. Or at least not knowledgeable enough to give anyone a fatwa about deen. Okay, if he's asked, he usually doesn't know. What does he rely on when he says, this is right, this is wrong? He relies on what? His passion, his zeal. But if zeal isn't bridled by knowledge, it can do what? It can cause you to go to extremes, right? So this monk, he was asked by this murderous person, he says, إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ قَتَلَ 99 نَفْسًا فَهَلْ لَهُ مِنْ تَوْبَةٍ. He said, indeed, a man has killed 99 people. Can he repent? So the monk said, La. He said, certainly not. A sinful wretch like you, there's no way I was going to forgive you for what you've done. So now this person with what? Fire in his eyes comes to you asking you this question, and he answered him based upon what? Ignorance. That wasn't knowledge. That was just what? That was zeal. That was self-righteousness. So what did the man do? He went back to what he knew and killed him. You see how his ignorance harmed him? You guys see that? See how the monk's ignorance harmed him? This is the reality of ignorance. A person who doesn't know will what? Will harm himself. Will harm himself. And that's why the poet, he said, عرفت الشر لا للشر ولكن لتواقيه ومن لم يعرف الشر وقع فيه. He said, I learned about sins. I learned about the haram. Not for the sake of the haram, not because I wanted to do it, but to do what? To avoid it. And whoever doesn't know the haram will do what? Will fall into it. You guys see that? So the person who doesn't know will do what? Will harm himself. He'll also harm others. He'll also do what? Harm others. And the proof for that is the hadith of Jabir, in which he mentioned that he and some of his companions went out on a journey, an expedition. And in the course of that expedition, one of them was hit in the head with a stone and had this what? This gash in his head, basically. And it bled profusely, but he put like a tourniquet of some sort, and he was able to do what? To stop the bleeding. But then that night he had a wet dream, and he needed to what? To make ghusl. But he feared that if I make a ghusl, if I take a bath, this wound is going to open. So he went to his companions and he said, هل تجدون لي رخصة في التيمم? Do you find that in my case, under these circumstances, I can make tayammum instead of taking a bath because I fear the effect it could have on this wound? And they said, لا نجد لك رخصة وأنت تقدر على الماء. He said, we don't find a concession for you because water is available and you're able to use it. So فاغتسل فمات. He took a bath, the wound opened, it bled profusely, and he died. He bled to death. When the Prophet was informed about this, you know what he said? He said, قتلوا قتلهم الله. He said, they killed him. He made them responsible for his death. قتلهم الله. And he made dua against them. Mustajab ad-da'wah. The one who is da'wah, his supplication is answered. He said, may Allah kill them. He prayed against them. And he said, أَلَمْ يَسْأَلُوا إِذْ لَمْ يَعْلَمُوا فَإِنَّ شِفَاءُ الْعِي السُّؤَالِ. He said, why didn't they just ask if they didn't know? Because indeed the cure for ignorance is to what? To ask the knowledgeable people. So in this case, the person who didn't know didn't harm himself, but harmed someone else. And this can happen too, that the one who's ignorant will speak about Allah's religion without knowledge and will misguide people. You guys see that? Another thing, that the one who's ignorant or ignorance is one of the principal causes for what? Khilaf. Differences of opinion, disputes, controversy. Something which Allah hates, doesn't like it, doesn't want it to happen. And so it's incumbent upon the believers to do what? Try to minimize it. They can't just get rid of it because Allah says it's part of His decree. He said, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ. They will not cease to what? To differ. And the hadith, the Prophet said, مَنْ يَعِشْ إِنَّهُ مَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ فَسَيَرَى اِخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Whoever lives long amongst you will see what? Much different. It's going to happen. It's part of Allah's decree. But the believers are supposed to do what? Minimize it. One of the way they minimize is what? By learning. As Imam Ahmad, he used to say, إِنَّمَا جَاءَ خِلَافُ مَنْ خَالَفَ لِقِلَّةِ مَعْرِفَةِ بِمَا جَاءَ عَنْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said, the disputing and differing of the one who disputed is seldom caused by anything other than the lack of knowledge he has, or his lack of knowledge of what the Prophet came with. And we see this all the time play out. People say, I object, that's wrong, Because what? I've never heard it before. Right? Not because it's wrong, but because I never heard it before, and their ignorance caused them to what? To object. Sometimes not just to object, to do what? To oppose, to become intolerant, and to create what? Schism. All because of what? Ignorance. Another of the domino effect caused by ignorance is it's not only just a cause for khilaf, it's also a cause for what? A principal cause for the ibtida', innovations. And we know what the Prophet said about innovations, right? Kullu bid'atin dalala. Every innovation is what? A going astray. And one of the principal causes of innovation is what? Is ignorance. As Ibn al-Qayyim, he used to say, وَالْأَسْبَابُ الْمَانِعَةِ Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, وَلَا تَجْدُ أَحَدًا وَقَعَ فِي بِدْعَةٍ إِلَّا لِنَقْصِ اتِّبَاعِهِ لِلسُّنَّةِ عِلْمًا وَعَمَلًا. You will not find anyone who falls into innovation except him who lacks knowledge of the sunnah or simply fails to practice it. You know the sunnah, you know what Allah said, you don't need to what? To make it up. Because it's right there, what to do. But when people don't know, they do what? They make it up. Another domino effect of ignorance is it's one of the principal what? Principal obstacles to accepting the truth. One of the things that stands in our way and blocks us from accepting it when we're ignorant. As Ibn al-Qayyim said, وَالْأَسْبَابُ الْمَانِعَةِ لِقَبُولِ الْحَقِّ كَثِيرَةٌ جِدًّا فَمِنْهَا الْجَهْلُ بِهِ وَهَذَا السَّبَبُ هُوَ الْغَالِبُ عَلَى أَكْثَرِ النُّفُوسِ فَإِنَّ مَنْ جَهِلَ شَيْئًا عَادَاهُ وَعَادَ أَهْلَهُ. He said the matters which prevent people from accepting the truth are very numerous. And ignorance is one of them. This obstacle is the one which affects people more than any other, because people have a tendency to hate which is foreign to them and the people who follow it. I never heard it before. It's wrong. You guys see that? It's automatically wrong. We can't. Ignorance is the cause for that. Because if you're not ignorant, if you really understand, you know, first and foremost, nobody knows everything. Nobody can claim to know what? All of the deen. So the fact that I don't know something is never going to be a hujjah. You guys see, there's never going to be a proof that it's wrong because nobody knows everything. So the fact that I don't know it, that's something what? Quite plausible. That this is something from the deen which I never heard before. Finally, al-jahl is a cause for al-ghulu, extremism. And wallahi, ya ikhwani, if you look at these extremists, the people who put out these videos where they behead people, where they set someone aflame and torture them to death. Wallahi, anybody who has any knowledge of Islam knows these are some of the most illiterate people when it comes to deen. Show me an example where the Prophet burned someone to punish them for anything, where he burned them. Show me. To the point that when some people did this to ants, the Prophet said, no one punishes with fire except Allah. They did it to ants, ya ikhwan. And the Prophet said, no one punishes with fire except Allah. How about if you punish what? A human being. This shows a level of illiteracy which is totally unacceptable for people who call themselves what? The Islamic State. Why do they do these things? Because of what? Their jahl, their ignorance. So one of the causes, principal causes, as the brother mentioned, he said, are there certain diseases which what lead to others? Definitely. And one of them is what? Al-jahl. And you see, look at all of the harm and disease that comes from this one disease, al-jahl. But let's go back now to the diseases. The next one we mentioned is shubuhat. These misconceptions, the erroneous interpretations in the deen. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith collected by Muslim authority Abu Hurairah, and I'll mention it in English for the sake of time. He says, the heart is afflicted with trials, one by one. Any heart that accepts them and welcomes them in will be left with a black stain, while the heart which rejects them will be left with a mark of purity, until hearts become one of two types, a heart which is white and the epitome of purity. It will never be harmed by any doubts or trials as long as the heavens and earth exist, and a heart which is black, murky in its blackness, perverted. It does not recognize good, nor does it denounce evil, except that which suits its desires and whims. Let you know what? The danger posed to the heart by what? Ash-shubuhat. And this is why we have to, we're going to talk about the cure later, we'll go off track. Next one, kathratul kalam. Talking too much, excessive talking. The Prophet said in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith, collected by Tirmidhi, on the authority of Abi Umama, he said, Al-haya wal-'i shu'batani min nifaq. Shu'batani min iman, and asif. Wal-badha wal-bayan shu'batani min nifaq. He said, modesty and avoiding excessive talking. Modesty and being what? A person who what? Who is very deliberate and very economical in what? In his speech, are two branches of faith, two indications of what a person believes. Modest and what? And avoids what? Talking too much. While al-badha, indecency. This is when a person has a tendency to what? To say bad words, to say foul things. And talking excessively, outspokenness, being vociferous, are two branches of hypocrisy. At-Tirmidhi, he commented on this hadith and he explained, said, Al-Badha huwa al-fuhshu fil kalam. What is intended by indecency is using foul language when speaking. And outspokenness means being long-winded and speaking more than necessary. Speaking more than necessary. This is another disease of the heart. When people what? Talk too much. The next disease, kathratul akal. No, I'm sorry. The next one is unrestrained glances. Unrestrained glances. Yeah, Ikhwan, some of the scholars, when they wrote about the concept of the heart, etc., they said that basically the shaitan, the heart to him is like, let's say you're like in a battle, right? And ultimately, when you're in a battle, what do you want to do? You want to win. How do you win? How do you win?
Unscathed.
Okay, so you're in a battle and your enemy has, at some place they have what? Their headquarters, right? The place where they basically, if you can take out that place, you're cutting off what? The head. And then there's going to be what? Chaos amongst what? The body. You guys agree with that? So that's one of your main goals. To knock out what? Knock out the headquarters, what they call, what is it? Something command. What do they call it? Not command center, but something?
Communication center.
Command. Something command. Maybe the term will come to me. Okay? Something. Central command. Central command. Central command, right? That's what you want to knock out, right? So, to the shaitan, what do you think will be central command? What do you think? Do you think it'll be your heart, your hand? Do you think it'll be, no, it'll be your heart, right? If I can get control of the heart, I can do what? I can manipulate. So he's always looking for what? An avenue, a pathway into what? The heart. Once I get inside, I can do what? I can manipulate. So the scholars of Islam, they said that when shaitan wants to enter the heart, he needs what? A fatha. He needs what? An opening, an entranceway. And they said that the entranceway, the method that he uses to what? To gain entry to the heart is unrestrained glances. When you look at the haram thing, it opens up what? A fatha. And that allows him to what? To get inside. When you look at things that you shouldn't what? Look at. And so now once he gets inside, he's able to do what? To use that image to do what? To affect you and to manipulate you in the way he wants. And I'm going to give you an example that you're going to see how this plays out. طيب, let's say one of us is watching television, let's say. Even if he's watching a show which is nadif, something clean, something G-rated, okay? There's going to be a commercial. There's going to be something which has something that he probably shouldn't look at. Isn't that true? It is. So they'll have like, he's watching a G-rated show, whatever, and then they'll have a Victoria's Secrets commercial, let's say. Okay? And so now he's watching things that he shouldn't watch and seeing things he shouldn't see. And if he doesn't have the presence of mind to do what? Look away from it, then what happens? A fatha opens and the shaitan enters. Then after the image goes away and he just forgets about it, he goes back to the G-rated program, whatever it is, then what happens when he's alone with his thoughts? That image comes. And it usually comes at the most inopportune times. When he does what? When he offers prayer, when he begins to read the Quran, right? When he's sitting in Jumu'ah, should be pay attention to what the Imam says. What happens? His mind goes off to what? That image. Who's using that image to do what? To come between him and his ibadah. Who's using it? The shaitan. There's not a person here who cannot say that didn't happen to him. It didn't happen. So you can see the reality of it. That it happens, he uses it. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ. He says, tell the believing men to lower their gaze and guard their chastity. That is more purifying for them. Ibn Kathir said, أَيْ أَطْهَرُ لِقُلُوبِهِمْ. It's pure for their hearts, وَأَنْقَى لِدِينِهِمْ, and better for their religion. You guys see that? So there's a correlation between these glances and what? And the heart and its the ability for it to be manipulated by a shaitan. طيب ثم بعد ذلك رفقاء السوء. رفقاء السوء. No, before that. أحسنت. كثرة الكلام I'm sorry, كثرة الأكل والشبع. وعليكم السلام. كثرة الأكل والشبع. Okay, so eating too much and what? And eating to your fill. Okay? طيب, we have the hadith collected by Ahmad al-Tirmidhi on the authority of al-Miqdam ibn Ma'di Karib, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ما ملأ آدمي وعاء شرا من بطن بحسب ابن آدم أكلات يقمن صلبه فإن كان لا محالة فثلث لطعامي وثلث لشرابي وثلث لنفسي. He said in the hadith, he said, the son of Adam does not fill a vessel whose filling is more evil than his stomach. A few morsels should suffice him to regain his strength and keep him upright. If he must fill it, then let him allow a third for his food, a third for his drink, and leave a third empty for easy breathing. So here the Prophet ﷺ informs us of the harm of what? Of overeating. And this is something which the scholars who studied this, especially those who are concerned with the hearts, like Ibn al-Qayyim, they talk about the effect of this on the heart. Okay, the son of Adam does not fill a vessel whose filling is more evil than his stomach. A few morsels should suffice him to regain his strength and keep him upright. If he must fill it, then let him allow a third for his food, a third for his drink, and leave a third empty for easy breathing. Okay? Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, he talked about how when you eat too much, it makes you what? Heavy, listless, lazy. And we've all experienced that. Okay? But he says, in addition to this, he says, هذا إلى ما يلزم ذلك من فساد القلب وكسل الجوارح. He said, this is in addition to what overeating necessitates of corruption of the heart. It corrupts the heart. And many of the scholars said similar things. Like Ibn Rajab, he said, الشبع يميت القلب. He said, eating to one's fill. Overeating kills the heart. And a lot of them made a connection between what? The deen, being in control of your deen, is connected with being in control of your stomach, your diet. So for example, I think it was Ibrahim ibn Adham. He said, من ضبط بطنه ضبط دينه ومن ملك جوعه ملك الأخلاق الصالحة وإن معصية الله بعيدة عن الجائع قريبة من الشبعان. He said, the one who controls his stomach controls his religion. And whoever reigns in his hunger will possess righteous character. Indeed, disobedience of Allah is nearest to the one who has a full stomach and furthest away from the one who is hungry. And perhaps that's why Allah decreed the best circumstances for the best of people, who in most cases, they were what? Hungry. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they talk about instances where what? They didn't have anything to eat but grass. And the Prophet himself, his wives would say there were days where what? Fire would not be lit in the Prophet's home, which means what? There was no what? Cooking going on. And they asked her, well, how did you survive? She said, the two blacks, dates and water. That's it. They had nothing. And you guys know the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was helping them dig the trench. And there were people who had stones wrapped around their waist because of hunger. And when he went to strike a stone that they couldn't break because he was the strongest of them, and he raised up, and obviously his tunic rose up as well, he had how many? He had 2 stones. So these people, they went hungry, and Allah didn't do this because he didn't love them. But he did it because what? That hunger was conducive for what? The type of spirituality he wanted them to want to attain. And that eating too much was threatened that spirituality. تفضل.
But sometimes, I mean, when you see around, hunger can be a source for leaving also the religion. Where people are enticed because of their poverty. By offering comforts to come away.
Understood. Missionaries and stuff like that. I get that. But that's poverty more than is what? Hunger. The message we're saying is that there's a correlation between what? Not eating too much and being what? Being in a state where you can be what? Your heart can be upright.
But even in hunger, right? Even people can cheat and lie and steal and...
No, I mean, that's not saying, because whenever you're going to have an exception to any rule, we're just saying that hunger, there's a correlation between it and spiritual piety, spiritual commitment, right? And the purity of the heart. That's it. Not to say that some people who are hungry, they'll still lie. Yeah, it can happen, sure. But the general rule is what? That this is a state which is conducive for what? For spiritual piety. طيب, the next one, رفقاء السوء, keeping bad company. And this is evidenced by the hadith collected by Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi on the authority of Abu Hurairah, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل. A person will follow the religion. Pay attention to this, the religion the religious path of his closest companion. So be careful with whom you take as a friend. That keeping company with people, it's not something, well, yeah, I might pick up some of their mannerisms. I might pick up what? Their style of dress. No. They can affect what? Your deen and the path that you choose in terms of what? The way you live your life and the way you worship God, etc. That's what? The greatest effect on the heart. And you have to understand that this is not just applicable to human beings that you spend time with frequently. It can even be what? Animals in your life. The Prophet said about the people who keep camels, they tend camels. He said, Al-Kibriya'u fi ashab al-ibl. Haughtiness and arrogance. You find it in the people who tend camels. The camels rub off on them, man, because the camel is what? A proud animal. It rubs off on them. وَالسَّكِينَةُ وَالْوَقَارُ فِي أَصْحَابِ الْغَنَمِ. He said, but tranquility and calmness you find in the people who tend sheep. Because sheep are what? They're the calmest of animals. You guys see that? So even animals can rub off on you. So how much more what? People. And the closer the person is to you, the more likely they are to do what? To rub off on you. So this is critical for those who are looking for what? A spouse. Right? Because this is the closest person to you. So you gotta pay attention to that. That the bad company you keep can do what? Can have a tremendous effect on the heart. Next one, al-kibr. Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من الكبر. فقال رجل من القوم يا رسول الله إن الرجل يحب أن يكون ثوبه حسنا ونعله حسنا يظن أن هذا كبرا. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله جميل يحب الجمال الكبر بطل الحق وغمط الناس. So he said, no person who has a mustard seed's weight, that's a very small amount of pride in his heart, will enter the paradise. So a man from the people, he said, "O Messenger of Allah, a man likes to wear nice clothes and wear nice shoes." He thought this was what? Kibr. So the Prophet said, Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful and He loves that you beautify yourselves. He loves that you wear nice things and you make yourself beautiful. He loves to see what? His bounty on you. Like you wear His bounty. But pride, the reality of it, is batul haqq. When you do what? You reject the truth. You know it's truth, but because it didn't come from who you think it should come from, or because it didn't come in the way that you think it should come, it wasn't delivered the way you think it should be delivered, you reject it. وَغَمْتَ النَّاسِ. And you look down upon what? The people. So the Prophet not only is telling us about al-kibr, but he's also telling us about what? The signs of it, how you can recognize it. Do you think you're better than someone else? When you think you're better than other people, you have what? You have a problem. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is a big problem with what? With Muslims. That they look at what? They look at the cover. And they judge the book by what? By the cover. They judge by skin color. They judge by ethnicity. They judge by language. They judge by the country you hail from or the village you hail from. And they never look at the content of a person's character. Okay? I'm not saying never, but seldom. It's always something outside, something external. Big problem. And it's also what? An indication that people have what? They have kibr. طيب ثم بعد ذلك we have ذو الوجهين, the person who what? Is two-faced, he's duplicitous. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, تجدون الشر الناس ذا الوجهين. الذي يأتي هؤلاء بوجه وهؤلاء بوجه. He said, you'll see the worst of people, the one who has two faces. Meets these people with one face, meets these people with what? A different face. Okay? ثم بعد ذلك, did we mention كثرة الضحك? Did we mention laughing too much?
No.
Put that in there, laughing too much. Because this is a big problem we have too. People have a tendency to what? There's nothing wrong, ya ikhwan, with jocularity. The Prophet laughed. His companions laughed. They laughed in his presence and he approved of it. But it's not good for a Muslim to be what? Someone who what? He's always laughing. Always finding things funny. There's no seriousness in him. There's just no seriousness. That's not good. That's not a quality that Muslims should have. Who? In Arabic, كثرة الضحك. كثرة الضحك. الضحك with ضاد. The Prophet said about this, he said, لا تكثر من الضحك فإن كثرة الضحك تميت القلب. He said, don't laugh too much, because laughing too much will kill the heart. Kill the heart, ya ikhwan. And he used to say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to say, لو تعلمون ما أعلم لضحكتم قليلا ولبكيتم كثيرا. He used to say, if you knew what I knew, you would laugh little and cry much. So it's critical, ya ikhwan, for us to pay attention to what? We need to basically monitor our laughter. There's nothing wrong with laugh, especially, ya ikhwan, with your family, with your children. You don't want to be stoic around them. You want to let your guard down. You want to let your hair down. But at the same time, you don't want to be the person who all they know is jocularity. And everybody just thinks, oh, he's a big goof. That Muslim guy's a big goof. Abadan. Abadan. The Muslim has to be what? He has to be this person who earns people's respect. And people don't respect a goof. A person who just laughs all the time, is never serious. ثم بعد ذلك, last but not least, al-hasad, jealousy and envy. And what is that? What is jealousy? What is the reality of jealousy and envy? Jealousy and envy means what? تمني زوال النعمة عن صاحبها سواء أكانت نعمة دين أو نعمة دنيا. So the reality of jealousy is when you see someone with a bounty and you wish that they didn't have it. You guys see that? They have a bounty and you wish that they didn't have it. Regardless of whether that bounty has relation to the dunya or the deen. You guys understand what I'm saying? So let's say a person, he had the ability to recite the Quran beautifully. And you wish he didn't have it. Not necessarily that you had it, but that he didn't have it. Or he had a great job, great home, great wife, and you wish what? He didn't have it. That's what? That's hasad. That's jealousy. And that quality is an evil quality. And it can even affect the aqeedah of the person. It can affect their aqeedah, because in effect, what you're saying is what? That this is wrong. This decree of Allah is wrong. So and so shouldn't have what? Shouldn't have this and shouldn't have that. It's even worse if you say not only should he not have it, but I should have it. As if what? I'm awla, I'm more deserving of it than him. So these are some of the diseases of the heart, ya ikhwan, or disease causes of the heart. And we're going to talk after salat, inshallah ta'ala, after dinner, about how to treat each of these diseases. Do you guys have any questions about what we said? Or shall we close and get ready for Salat al-Asr?
That hadith on the laughing, don't laugh too much, because laughing will kill the heart? Or
Yeah, he says, tumitul qalb. Laughing too much kills the heart. And that was collected by Tirmidhi and Abu Hurairah, and al-Albani declared it sound. Al-Albani declared it sound. Are we good, ya ikhwan? No questions, no comments, no complaints, no critiques?
Please repeat the unnecessary and excessive talking.
Excessive talking, the hadith.
And
Abshir, abshir. All right, let me see where we're at. He said, modesty and avoiding excessive talking are two branches of faith. And he said, indecency and outspokenness are two branches of hypocrisy. Two branches of hypocrisy. You got it, Eunice?
No.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, complaints, concerns? Okay, we'll break. تفضل تفضل.
Quick question about the laughing part.
Mm-hmm.
About joking excessively. Can you comment on that?
Joking excessively. Again, it goes hand in hand with laughing too much, like we said, that there's nothing wrong with a Muslim having some jocularity, having a sense of humor, especially in certain settings and with certain people. Like we said, with your family, you need to let your hair down, okay? You cannot be stoic, you cannot be stiff around your family. They need to see that side. We kind of talked about it yesterday, that sensitive side, that affectionate side. They need to see that. And the Prophet was keen. So I told him to demonstrate that with his family. And he criticized those people who what? They didn't. So if you guys remember, the Prophet, one of his children came in the presence of an Arab guy. I don't remember if that guy was from the Badia. I don't know if he was from the villagers, al-Arab, or was he actually from civilization. Al-Muhim though, the guy was one of those people who doesn't show any emotion. So he's sitting with the Prophet, and one of the Prophet's children comes in, and he kissed his child. So the man said, "You kiss your children?" He was like surprised. "You kissed your children?" And the Prophet, he went on to say, "I have 10 children, and I've never kissed a single one of them." And the Prophet said, I can't help it if mercy has been removed from your heart. The Prophet was keen to show affection to his children and also to show it in front of others so they would learn from his example. And so it's critical for the Muslim to do what? To let his hair down in front of with his family, and that includes what? A little jocularity. But he should never be the person, whether with his family and especially outside of the family circle, he should never be the person who what? Laughs a lot and makes a lot of jokes to the point that he gets that title, whether they say it outwardly or inwardly they hold that perception of him that he's a goof. He's a riot. He's the life of the party. He's a big laugh. The Muslim should not be depicted or described with these types of attributes. He should be a person who has what? He has the people's what? Respect. He has their respect. And so for that reason, it's critical for the Muslim to what? To have a serious side, and that side should dominate. Does that mean he can't have a laugh with the people at work? That they say something funny and he... No, because then that will give the other wrong impression. That, these people, they don't have a sense of humor. These people, they're just robots with no feelings, etc. So we don't want to send that message either, but at the same time, we don't want to give the impression that we're what? We're a bunch of goofs. Does that answer it, Eunice? هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.